Hey guys, welcome back to the Unleashed podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger. Today we are chatting with my good friend and now colleague, Jake Jordan. Jake is the director of business services for Kingdom Ecosystems, also is over the Impact First Accelerator. So he is over all of helping businesses accelerate, ministries accelerate. He comes from as you'll hear in this episode, a business background, much like me. He was in real estate, and actually so cool. He partnered up with his parents to start a real estate company, and they went around and spoke on stage, and they flipped houses together. Out of all the episodes I've ever had, I don't remember anybody that has started a business with their parents. And Jake did that and was wildly successful in the real estate arena. Went into business coaching, coaches CEOs. He has a nonprofit organization called Solitude for CEOs, where he wants CEOs to get quiet, spend time with the Lord, get to the direction they need to move their company and their life forward. But Jake is an awesome guy. We talked about he's going to be on here multiple times because he's got just so much to offer, so much value to offer, so much value to bring you guys and to me and to the kingdom of God. But we talked about fear and how fear stops people from moving forward and the different types of fear and how to overcome it. He gave some very practical steps for overcoming fear in your life and how you can self-coach yourself, how you can coach yourself to get over that fear. But fear is a real thing, guys. It's false. I always say it's false evidence appearing real, and it's the opposite of faith. Do not let fear stop you from what God has called you to do. Listen to this episode. It'll equip you to get over those fears that are stopping you from taking action into your dreams and being unleashed. So here's my interview with Jake. Jake, welcome to Unleashed, man. Good to see you.
Man, welcome to you too.
Yes,
This is a new thing, right?
it is new.
It's a
Yes. Have you
pivot.
ever rebranded a podcast before?
No, I've only shut it down and started a new subject and
Yeah.
tried to get my audience to come with me.
Right. Well, that's what we're
So,
doing here. Just hope. I mean, I know there's people in my audience that are strong believers that desperately want to fulfill the plan of God that God has, the plan that God has for them, the call that He has for them.
yeah.
And so that's what this is about is going. So with streams of income, it was about, your finances, helping you start a business, be able to quit your job. But this is
Mhm.
way more holistic. And like, what has
Mhm.
God called you to do in every area of your life? Let's unleash that.
Yeah. That's exciting. And obviously you and I are in the water together, right?
Yes.
We're swimming around trying to figure some of this stuff out in a new way anyway. So why not
Mhm.
pivot the podcast too, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Cool. Well, every with streams of income, I want to hear people's stories. And I think
Right.
that is still, if I'm the host of this, that's natural for me because
Yeah.
one of the things I love about podcasting is being able to, like you and I know each other, but if I hadn't known each other before, known you before,
Right.
I want to get to know you. Like this is an opportunity for me to know who you are because there may be ways for us to work together, but I am genuinely interested in people. And
Yeah.
so the only question I ask that's always the same is what's your story? So let's dig
Mhm.
into that. Who are
Yeah.
you? And we'll see where that goes. It typically is you never, it's not always exact. You may say something like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Let's talk about that. Let's unpack that." But let's talk about you.
Okay, so for the purposes of Unleashed, my story, I was a repressed, conservative, church-going lad for many, many years, and grew up in Texas, grew up in the church, grew up with parents that worked very hard and expected high performance. It's
Hmm.
actually how I really understood acceptance and love for
Yeah.
first half of my life was performance, right? And going, if I do well, I'm going to get the adoration, the respect, the love of my parents and my family, and that's how I do it, right? And so I grew up that way, and then I wanted to be a major league baseball player,
Hmm.
legit, and that did not work out. That's another story for another day. But um, when you don't perform well, and that's the way that you find acceptance, it can crush you, and that's what it
Mm.
did to me. Is it crushed
Yeah.
me because under the weight of this performance that I was not able to do, I found myself in an identity crisis and really trying to figure out what God had for me. Because at the
Hmm.
time I was not much of a Christian.
Mm.
You know, I accepted the Lord when I was 12, baptized when I was 13, but I was far from God when I
Mm.
was 21.
Mm.
And so that was kind of the beginning of of figuring out what calling was for me
Yeah.
was a big disappointment, you know?
Yeah. Wow. What did that? So you must have been really good if you were seriously thinking about, I mean, because most kids, yes, I want to be a Major League Baseball player, but they're not serious. But if you're thinking that at 21, I
Yeah.
mean, you were a pretty good baseball player.
Yeah. But playing college, trying semi-pro,
Yeah.
trying the ways to get to the majors that I could. But when that
Yeah.
didn't work out, it was I had to make a choice. Did I want to knock around in, the minors for 5, 6, 7, 8 years
Mhm.
and rehab and
Yeah.
try and find my spot, or did I want to think about something else? And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. I pivoted and
Yeah.
actually became an entrepreneur,
That's
which started with that journey.
that's awesome. And you still watch baseball all the time?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love baseball. Baseball is to me such an intellectual sport. There's so
Uh-huh.
much going on in every position
Mm,
at all times. And so, yeah, I like complex problems, you
mm,
know? So baseball has complex problems. Football
yeah.
has less complex. Basketball has some complexity.
Uh-huh.
They all have some,
Yeah.
but to me, baseball is the most fun.
Yeah. Weird question. That
Mm.
just made me think of this why you never know where an interview is going to go. Did your baseball experience help you as an entrepreneur at all?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Let's unpack. I'm
Absolutely.
curious about that. What did that
Yeah.
like? What did that look like?
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? Somebody asked me that maybe 10 years ago on a podcast, and I was like, I don't know. Probably. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Uh-huh.
since then, I have definitely figured it out. And it's
Okay.
one coach told me
Uh-huh.
all the time, keep your butt down, Jake. Because I was a middle infielder, which
Yeah.
means I had to get down, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And get my glove low to the ground and get my center of gravity low to the ground so that I could come up on any hops that were happening, right?
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah.
the best position to pivot, to
Yeah.
win, to make a play. And that
Mm,
he would always yell, keep your butt low, right?
yeah.
Uh, and so as I went into entrepreneurship, at some point I went, how would I keep my butt low
Mm,
around my business? What's the thing that I'm not positioning right so that I'm responding in the best way possible all the time?
mm,
Where am I not positioned right?
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So practically, that's what came out of that for baseball. Obviously, the
Yeah.
discipline was really, really great because I knew
Sure.
how to work hard
Yeah.
and long hours practicing in travel tournaments.
Of
That
course.
that was never a problem for me as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I would even go back to the complex problems. Right, as a
Uh-huh.
shortstop, you're the general of the field.
Yeah.
It's you see everything. You have the best
Yeah.
spot on the field mostly,
Yeah.
outside the center fielder maybe, but and you direct the infield, right?
Hmm.
When plays are happening. And you back up the pitcher a lot of times, and
Hmm.
you have to look at second base and see if it's you or the second baseman based on where the ball's hit. Like there's all these things going on all the time,
Yeah.
and I think having to look at multiple problems at once was also
Hmm.
a great thing for entrepreneurship because it's never one thing.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I feel like there's a potential, like if you wanted to do something different at some point, you write a book called Keep Your Butt Down. And the things
That's
I learned from baseball for
baseball about
business.
work. Yeah, about business. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
that's right.
that's so valuable to be able to pivot quickly. Because most, I think there's a book about Who Moved My Cheese or something.
Okay.
It's about
Yeah.
pivoting in business and how businesses that don't pivot, they die. Look at like Blockbuster Video. And so that's very valuable advice. Yeah, being
Yep.
able to be in a position to pivot quickly.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. And
mm,
there's another one, and this is probably going to lead into what you and I talked off air about, maybe a particular subject we could talk about. But
mhm.
you have to be okay with failure. That is a business concept, and it's something I learned in baseball because we would take ground ball after ground ball after ground ball because you don't get them all. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's normal, right? And you hear
Yeah.
people talk about if you bat 250, 300 in baseball, you're an all-star. I mean, it's 3 out of 10 times if you're
Yes.
successful, you're an
Yes.
all-star.
Yeah.
That's a great lesson for entrepreneurs that,
Yes, it is.
you do absolutely fail more than you win, and you can still be a
Yes.
winner.
That's a great lesson. Feels like we could probably take all these baseball lessons and make a whole episode out of each of them.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you were in baseball, you decided to not pursue that and go into the minors, and then be an entrepreneur. So what was your first entrepreneurial venture?
So my dad was an electrical engineer with MCI and WorldCom, and he hated corporate. He's always been an inventor, really, is really what he is.
Hmm.
And when he was in his early 40s, decided that he wanted to go back to being an entrepreneurial mindset. And so he was doing all this training around. Read a book called Halftime by
Yeah. Bob Buford.
Bob Buford, right? And he
Yes.
gave it to me when I was 21. So I got to read Halftime
You
when I
read
was
that when you were 21? That's
yeah,
awesome. I
yeah.
just went through that book last year. It's so good.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And I've connected with him with LinkedIn, and he's such a cool guy.
I
And
think
his
he passed
Institute's a
away
great
not
one.
too long ago.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
That's a bummer.
But I think
He's doing great
he
work.
was from Dallas.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a local guy.
And he still has a
Uh,
business, I think, is they continued it on and does
Institute.
training and all that. Wow.
Yeah. He is the Halftime Institute. Yeah.
Gotta, by the way, just sidebar, how is there any way to serve them with
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
doing?
Well, you know it. You know
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
That's a good
Okay.
sidebar.
All
Well,
right, so
so
you read
the idea
halftime
was
at
is that
21. That's crazy.
yeah, so I would halftime at 21, and then my parents bought and flipped a house when they were first married. They bought it, rehabbed it, sold it a year later, made some money. So they're like, we should just get back into real estate. We liked flipping houses.
Hmm.
So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 21 by
Wow.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And then I also read Millionaire Next Door when I was 21. And then
Yeah.
I read, gosh, there's a whole stack of them. What's the thinking one? Anyway,
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, I read
Yeah.
that when I was 21. I read a whole because we were on this journey to become financially free,
Wow.
but to do it in a way that was in tune with the way God built us,
Hmm.
and strength. So we built a company. My mom and my dad and I. And my mom is a fantastic business development person, and she trains teams. And I'm great at messaging and marketing and communication. And I have some of that influential stuff that my mom has.
Yeah.
And then my dad's an engineer. He can build processes. So we kind of had this like superstar mom and like connector son and then like process driven dad. And we were only missing kind of one element really.
Yeah.
So we had really a superstar team. Problem was I was 21 and I thought I knew everything.
Yeah.
And I'm working with my parents. So it was really, really tough and really, really rewarding. And we did really well, really, really well.
Wow.
So the
In
short
real
version of
estate,
that,
in the real estate business.
yeah, short version is we ended up flipping between 35 and 40 houses per year.
Oh my goodness.
We were 7-figure earners.
Dang.
We became stage speakers nationally. And then I had, for a year, I had clients in 45 cities that I taught them how to market for homes. I was a coach of other real estate investors. So yeah, man, I got in there early. So between like 21 and 27, I had a really fantastic ride. And then another day, I can tell you how the Lord grabbed me when I was 27 and set me on a new course.
Wow.
But,
I've interviewed
yeah,
a lot of
the funny part,
entrepreneurs over the years. I've never heard a story of somebody partnering with their mom and dad to start a business. That's so awesome.
yeah, crazy. Yeah, it's a huge blessing. It built a foundation for us to have a relationship as adults because my parents are great friends of mine now.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, the point of that is I did really well. I learned some things about myself. I gained some new skills. I learned SEO in 1999. So no one else was really doing that.
Yeah.
So I got really good at buying and selling houses online.
Okay.
But that was my calling. Like I recognized that marketing is a skill set and communication is a skill set, but it's not really where God has called me to be unleashed for his kingdom. Right.
Wow. Is there anything, I mean, I'd love to dig in and we can talk more and you can be on many more episodes, as many as you want. Is there anything else about your story? I mean, I'd love to hear more, but do you want to dig into Unleashed at all? Or do you want to, it's up to you on where we go with this. I feel like there's so many different directions.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the 2 more pivots in my career I had after that. And I think we could probably dig more into the stuff we talked about potentially.
Sure.
Which is fear. I mean, fear is where I'm headed with all this. And it's what's been some of my biggest lessons along the way. But I went into ad agency after that. I had a friend that owned an ad agency and he was like, man, you're really good at SEO. Do you want to come and be the head of search? And I don't really have a marketing department, so you can be the head of marketing, whatever. And so I came in and that's what I did for a while. And then I went to another ad agency, did really well there. Went to another ad agency, kind of 3 different sizes. So I grew 3 different agencies, 3 different sizes.
Yep.
And then once again, I had the conversation with God that what is it that I'm really built for? Like I'm finding success in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely discipling and evangelizing when the opportunity comes up. So I felt like I was doing a good job in living my faith out, but I still didn't necessarily know if I was in my calling.
Yeah.
which is it's a big subject, right? There's a
Yes.
whole lot of weird stuff that goes around in our heads around it. And so
Right.
when I was 39, I left ad agency and I decided to go and become a business advisor on my own, just open
Hmm.
my own shop up. So go back to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I've always side hustled the whole time. The whole time I had a ad agency, the first time you and I talked,
Uh-huh.
I remember that I was telling you that I used to be FBA, Amazon,
Yes. Yes.
and I was making almost as much in that as I was in my day job as the ad agent. See,
Amazing.
yeah. So I'm just like, you know what? God built me to create things,
Yeah.
and
Mm,
God built me to challenge leaders,
mm,
and God built me to go do things and be
mm.
scared and do them anyway and show other
Yeah.
people how to do that. So a lot of what I do when I disciple or when I coach executives or when I do leadership or management consulting or any of those things,
Hmm.
I really feel like 50% of it is helping people get unlocked or
Yeah.
unleashed from the
Mm,
thing that's between them and success. And it's
yes.
fear like 80% of the time.
Wow. Wow. Were you, what was in between, right after the business of the agents? Just to wrap up, we don't need to go any deeper, but I'm just curious about your story. The three different ad agencies, you were doing Amazon on the side too. What brings us up to today? I know you were the business
Yeah.
advisor. Is that it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay,
So I've been a business advisor the last 6 years.
got it.
I
Okay.
worked for myself, done joint venture stuff,
Yep.
um, taught classes,
Okay.
really anywhere there were leaders that wanted help growing, potentially like
Yeah.
revenue streams.
Yeah.
That's what I was interested in doing.
That's cool.
Um, and so, yeah. And then, of course, I got connected to you guys in the last year, and here we
Yeah.
are.
You also have your own nonprofit for CEOs.
I do. I have a ministry called Solitude for CEOs,
That's
which
awesome.
was part of my journey as well. Was hey,
Mm,
Jake, if you really want to know what I've got for you and the things to do, you have to listen to me,
yeah.
which means you got to come sit down and be
Mm,
quiet. And so God
yes.
called me to go do that, and He
Yeah.
did it. I did it once or twice, and it like right away, because
Mm,
God has a sense of humor. He goes, "Okay, now I want you to teach them some other people how to do it." I'm like,
wow.
"I've done it like twice. How am I going to teach people?" He's like, "Just teach the first thing, you know."
That's good.
So yeah, he put me in that ministry, and then yeah, I'm on the board of several things. I'm on the
Uh-huh.
board and help co-found a nonprofit called Vehicle for Good, where
Hmm.
we give away vehicles online,
Okay.
on social media, and
Wow.
all the winnings go to one nonprofit for each car that we
Oh,
give
that's
away.
cool.
So vehicleforgood.com on that one, and then yeah, I'm on the board of several other nonprofits that I just love and want to see them succeed.
And
So,
guys, if you're, I mean, we've mentioned a bunch of books and now some URLs. I'm going to, oh, these will all be in the show notes.
okay,
Just want people to be, because they're like, hey, what was that book you talked about that you read when he
yeah,
was 21? Well, it's Halftime. We got Rich Dad Poor Dad Millionaire Next Door, Think and Grow Rich.
yep.
Wow, that's amazing. I know that you and I are just getting to know each other the last several months, but I did not know any of that. That's so cool. You started at 21 with your parents. That's really
Hmm.
cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk about fear. And so is that, I mean, you obviously being a kind of a coach and advisor for
Mhm.
leaders, is
Mhm.
that one of the biggest things that you even people like that, you feel like those people aren't fearful. They're at the top of the food chain in their companies. They don't fear stuff.
Not true. They're just as afraid of all of us.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of a current client. Okay, I'm going to scrub the names and
No
the
names, right?
places, right? So
His
to
name's
protect the
Ryan Rieger.
innocent.
And no, I'm just
That's right. His name's Ryan. Um,
kidding.
so my friend Bob runs a company, and my friend Bob is extremely successful,
Mm,
but he is afraid of letting go, giving control to his executive team.
mm, mm-hmm, mm,
He would admit that, but he doesn't want to let it go, and
mm.
that's what's holding him back right now.
Yeah.
He's growing in spite of his fear, luckily, but
Wow.
he's had enough incidents to see where he's slowing things down
Yeah.
that he has wise enough to have asked for help.
Yeah.
And now we have to work through that together because
Mm,
they have more business than they can. They're doubling in size, and
wow.
they're doing great. But they can crash and burn if they don't fix this because now he's to the point where he can actually start undoing the growth if he tries to keep
Wow.
keep control of all the different things going on.
Wow.
So he's afraid of not being important anymore necessarily in the future.
Mm,
This thing that he built for years. not
Wow.
having a place, and them not doing it as well as he's done it. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Well, they
that's
might
more the
not,
fear. When I
right?
talk
And
about fear,
not they may not,
I
but
think
some of them
that's
may
more
do
common.
better, but they might not all do better than him, but you got to be okay with that, correct?
You can't scale without it.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to let go. So
Mm,
yeah, so I mean, like it's not, oh, I'm afraid to act. That's not really the fear
right.
that most people deal with. I mean, sure, I mean, there are things that you're scared of, but I would say a whole lot more of your day is based around fear of your own ego or your own actions or your own experience being taken from you when something new appears and
Mm,
you're unclear or something seem vague or
yeah.
working in the margins.
Yeah.
There are people who are naturally just less fearful, but
Hmm.
they're not unafraid.
Yeah. Mm. Is that when you're working with leaders, is that typically the main fear? Is it they're losing control because they're growing and they don't want to let go of their baby?
That's one of them. Another one would be they're afraid to let someone else help with the vision.
Mm,
So most leaders, if they haven't grown the business themselves, they've come in and they've grown it from where they were to where they are now.
yeah.
And their vision is the one they feel like
Yeah.
has grown it. But
Mm,
even then, they had other people pouring in. It's
yeah.
just, I if I let too many people into this, they're going to muck it up,
Yeah. Mm,
right? Which is different than the first one because the first one's more about I'm not going to be important anymore. I can't let go. I can't delegate. I can't
yeah.
trust people. The other
Yeah.
one's like the vision itself. Okay, I trust
Right.
them, but I don't know if they can make this thing any better than I have.
Mm, yeah. How are you getting those
And then
people?
the third one would probably
Uh,
be,
Go ahead.
yeah, so the third one would probably be a money. There's
Mm,
a poverty mindset
yeah.
in that I can't let go of too much money too fast in the name of growth, which you do want to be careful, but most people take it to the extreme one way or the other. They spend way too much money and spend themselves out of business, or they will
Yeah.
not spend and they die on the vine.
Mm,
So it's people and money. That's
yeah.
really what that holds
Yeah.
people back.
The main thing. Do you feel like though, so thinking ahead of to all these people that we're going to be serving in Unleashed, not all of them are
Hmm.
going to be CEOs like you're dealing with every day. What are some of the fears that you feel like, our future audience are going to have that they like, Jake, Ryan, I'm here. I want to
Right.
fulfill what
Right.
God's called me to do. What's some of their fears going to be? I mean, I can guess at some of them.
Hmm.
But what are you
Sure.
thinking?
I'm sure you do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the unknown. The unknown's the first one. That's
Yeah.
the very first one that you have to overcome is you don't know what's next. And that's just a pure faith conversation in
Yes.
my estimation.
Yeah.
Is God already tells us what to do with that, right? He's a lamp unto our feet, a light unto our path. We take
Yes.
one step at a time. We check in with him daily. We ask
Yep.
for his guidance. Proverbs says those that seek wisdom
Mm-hmm.
will live long. We'll have
Mm-hmm.
full families. We'll prosper in this world. Those aren't
Yeah.
promises; they're just best practices, right? But
Yeah.
God values you leaning on Him, so not on your understanding. That
Hmm.
all comes into that fear of the unknown.
Absolutely.
That is, if God is leading you some way, you trust that He has something, and you just
Yes.
move,
Yes.
right? So that's the unknown. That's the first one. I think that
Yeah.
really, I think that holds most people back from their first big breakthrough because
Hmm.
once you get first through that first big breakthrough, there's a lot of small little hurdles to overcome that we could talk
Sure.
about. But
Yeah.
another, I think, flavor or version of that is imposter syndrome is like, I don't really know,
Hmm.
should I really be doing this? Like,
Yes.
it's unknown. It's the
Yeah.
unknown.
Yeah. I see that a lot with imposter syndrome. Man, like especially if somebody says, I want to write a book on that subject because I feel I'm an expert in that, or they probably wouldn't say expert because
Yeah.
they don't feel that good about themselves. But it's there's 500 other books about that topic. Why would I write that book? Why would I start that podcast? And I just keep
Yes.
telling people, and I tell the audience that's listening now too, is like, um, and you thinking about it from an unleashed perspective, is we need your supply as the body of Christ. Jake, there's probably hundreds of thousands and thousands of other business advisors out there, but you're the only Jake, and there are going to be people that are attracted more to you, that you say things in a certain way that people are just going to gravitate towards. So we need you said flavor earlier, and that's so true. We need your flavor, because I may not like this business advisor because they're whatever. They're older than me and I don't like that, or they're younger and I don't like that, or well, for whatever reason, I just don't resonate with that person. And so there are other people on waiting for there are people waiting on the other side of your obedience. And so don't let that imposter syndrome stop you from, if God's laid it on your heart, he's got people that are needing to hear that from you. And it doesn't matter if Jake's already a business advisor. If you feel called to be a business advisor, go do it, because
Right.
he's not going to be able to serve them all anyway. So find
Yeah.
your people, serve them well. And yeah, I find that a lot. Imposter syndrome's a big one.
Yeah. I don't know if you know Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO
No.
on YouTube. He's really got a great podcast, and he put something up. I actually reposted it recently that said, "We're getting imposter syndrome wrong. It's not imposter syndrome. That's an incorrect label.
Mm,
It's a growth moment.
mm,
It's a chance for you in a small moment in your own life to step forward and be
yes.
courageous and grow in something.
Yes.
So
That's
just
good.
the reframing of that already feels more achievable,
Yes.
right? And gives you a little boost. And so I'm trying to switch my language around it. I'm using imposter syndrome because that's what it's called. That's what most people call it.
Sure.
But now I'm trying to tell myself, no, it's not that I feel like an imposter. It's that this is scary, and now I get to choose if I'm going to grow
Yeah.
today in this one thing.
That's so good. You feel like those are probably two of the biggest ones that we're gonna see in people, right? And fear of the
The
unknown,
unknown,
stepping out,
yeah, the imposter syndrome.
imposter
Uh,
syndrome, or growth moment now that we're gonna call it that.
yeah, yeah, growth mindset, growth moment. I would
Mm,
say that, like you said, not everyone's a CEO. So I think everyone has this particular issue, and it's their own. Either, I mean, you can look at it two ways: their own security
mhm.
or their own position. So no matter what title you hold in a company, you're constantly, if you're in fear, you're
Yeah,
constantly worrying about your own actions. You're not owning them confidently and doing the best of your abilities because you feel like that's what's right.
yeah,
Right. When you perform that way, then there's growth opportunities.
right.
But when you're constantly going, well, how will I look to my manager if I do it this way? You're
Mm,
sitting in imposter syndrome is really what you're
mm,
doing.
yeah.
So I do think that your own ego, stature, position, I think
Mm-hmm.
that worrying more about that than your actual calling and the work it takes holds a lot of people
Mm,
back too.
that's good. Wow. So when you're talking to these CEOs, no matter what the fear they're dealing with, I mean, obviously the answer is Jesus and all that. But what are the practical things you're helping people get over and Jesus is always the answer, right? What are
He's
some
no,
practical ways you're helping them get over that fear?
yeah. Well, it's classic coach response here I'm about to give you, right? Any
Yeah.
of the coaches or people who've been coaching go, oh, right. It's questioning yourself is
Mm,
always the best answer to almost every problem in your life. Because if we look at our master, Jesus,
mhm.
he questioned. He was
Yeah.
such a good question asker.
Yeah.
And there's a great book, and gosh, I wish I could think of it about Jesus the coach. That's not what it's called, but essentially it's the theme of the book and how he was such a good
You'll
question.
think of it later. I'll add it to the show notes later. It's all good.
Yes, 100%, 100%. But I'll give you an example in a couple different places, right? As a leader, as an executive, if you're having problems, whether it's coaching up someone underneath you or overcoming an intellectual issue that you just can't get past or whatever, instead of trying harder, it's better to step back and ask
Mhm.
yourself a couple of questions of like, okay, if I was coaching myself, what would I tell me to do right now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I was like when I'm parenting my kids, I use the same technique. If I'm
Mhm.
frustrated and I can't get through to my kids, I step back when I'm being smart and
Mhm.
I go, if I was coaching someone else how to parent in this place,
Yeah.
what would I tell them? And then an answer
Mm,
comes that wasn't there for some reason
yeah.
because now you stepped out of your own circumstances, right? So
Mm,
that's a super helpful tool every day to get yourself out of fear. Because now
yeah.
fear is essentially not knowing what's around the corner. And so
Yeah.
your fight or flight comes on and
Yes.
you're making poor decisions. So it's taking yourself out of fight or flight. right? You're putting yourself in the
Yes.
advisor position for yourself.
That's good.
Um, I got a buddy named Jake Brown who he says he has two mentors in his life that have passed on. He has a grandpa and a let's just say an uncle. I can't remember.
Yep.
But he said both were so extremely wise. And he said when he gets in moments like that, he's like, what would Grandpa Tony say?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it immediately helps him just
Mm,
de-escalate, get in a better spot. He doesn't always get an answer, but at least he feels better. He's in a better spot now to get answers.
yeah.
So that's one
Yes.
is advise yourself. Step back in an advisor role, however you want to do that, however you want to frame that for yourself. And then the second thing is, once again, people are gonna roll their eyes, is and I like to put numbers on things because it makes it tangible. 1 to 10,
Hmm.
how bad would this be if I screwed this up? And almost always it's less than a 7,
Yeah.
which means it's not that big a deal, really. So just
Yeah.
go ahead and do it.
That's good. Real quick, what are some questions? Okay, Jake, I'm struggling with I'm fear of the unknown. I feel like God's called me to step out and um write this book that's been on my heart for many years,
Mm,
but I
mm,
I am not a writer.
yeah.
I know it would help people, but it just scares me to do this. And I maybe it's also imposter syndrome too. This
Mm,
subject, there's 500 books out there right now about the subject. Why would anybody listen to me? Like nobody knows who I am. So
yeah.
I'm just scared to do it. It seems daunting, and I just don't feel like I'm the right person. Although I know God's called me to do it, it's very scary. So what are some of the I love to
Mm,
come with
mm,
practical some advice. So I love the idea of questioning yourself. What are some off the top of your head
yeah.
question like if you were coaching me that
Hmm.
people who are listening and dealing with this can ask ask themselves these questions.
Yeah. Okay, well pick one of those so I can dive
Let's
in.
do the just like fear of the unknown. It's just scary leave or maybe writing a book. I don't know. You and I
It's a
have
big
both done this,
task.
so it's
I've
not
never
that
done it.
scary. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's scary because I've never done it before.
Yeah.
There's just a
Yeah.
lot in it. It may take a lot of time, and that might be time away from my family, and it's
Mm,
just Jake,
yeah.
I'm
A lot of
scared.
unknowns. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Here. They're there now. uh, so yeah, great. I understand. I've written a book. I felt the same way, Ryan. I
Yeah.
totally get it. Let me ask you a few questions if that's all right.
Hmm.
First off, you said you feel like God's called you to write this book.
Yeah.
Why would you say that? What makes you think he's called you to this?
It's just been on my heart. It's just been a message that I've been thinking about for years. It's something that upsets me. And so I just know that God's called me to do it. I just know it's just one of those
Mm,
things just in my know or inside. I know it's the
mm,
Holy Spirit leading me that direction that I know that He wants me to get this message out.
okay. And Ryan, if we were sitting down together at coffee and I ask you a question about this subject, do you think you'd have a couple things to share with me that could be helpful possibly?
Oh, absolutely. I totally could help you with this for sure.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
a mentor once told me that when you write a book, you write it for one person at a time.
Mm,
So that might be a good way to think about it is you're not writing a book that's going on the New York Times bestseller list. It may end up there. That'd be great.
yeah.
You're writing it for one person that you're sitting across
Yeah.
coffee for. So
Mm.
how does that feel from a message standpoint now?
It, I mean, honestly, it takes the pressure off, because it's not about like, oh my gosh, I got thousands of people. It may really only be for one. I mean, I know it's probably more for more
Yeah.
people, but it does take the pressure off when you're thinking about it's just for that one person that I can be a blessing to.
Well, and another way I might take that conversation, Ron, is to go, um, hey, are there tools out there? Have you found any tools that help you write a book, like courses or even groups you can join that are writing books together? You feel like there's tools out there to help you
Yes,
with
there's
the
tons
work?
of them.
Yeah,
And we could just say, yeah, I've taken a course, or
yeah,
maybe I haven't.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Do you feel
that's
like that course has been helpful? Like it gave you some good steps
hmm
so, you at least know how, like the process you feel like you need to go through?
yes, yes,
Right. So
yeah,
how do we eat an elephant?
yeah, one bite at
One
a
bite at a
time.
time. So
Yeah.
what's the first step in that process, Ryan?
I need to make an outline.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't we just start there? We can talk again next week.
That's good. Yeah, that is good. Yeah.
So it's a matter of just it's breaking the big problems down to small problems.
Mm,
It's taking the fear and shrinking it down to what it actually is,
yeah.
and then it's advising yourself once you understand.
Do you
Because a
feel
lot of
like
times,
I've had coaches that do take me through that exact process and it's so valuable. Do you feel like a
Mhm.
person can do a decent job on their own of asking themselves those questions that they have that framework?
Oh yeah, I mean you have
Okay.
to practice. It's not
Yeah.
something that comes naturally to most of us, but you can absolutely learn how to coach yourself. Definitely.
Mm,
I find that most people have aha moments and they have one or two things that work really well for them,
yeah.
and they'll find it and they'll stick to it and it'll help tremendously. But
Yeah.
they'll forget that that's what they were doing. Is I need to
Yeah.
find places to unlock me, to unleash me with some little techniques, because when they find one
Yeah.
or two, it's like they stop, and a coach
Yeah.
just keeps going, right? You
Yes,
keep
that's
pushing.
good.
Or if you're someone that's really like just enjoys psychology like me, I learned how to self coach because I just found it so fascinating.
Yeah. That's so good. I think this probably just think talking to you, just even though we're talking publicly, but kind of privately. That would be an awesome mini course or kind of a some type of resource inside Unleashed is to how to for people to coach themselves. The coaching habit. Okay, Michael Stainer.
Yep. That's a great book that you could read and
Okay.
learn how to coach yourself better. It's telling you how to coach anybody in your life, but that includes yourself. And it's a really easy, he's a great, simple writer,
Okay.
very to the point, fun.
Yeah.
I would recommend that for anybody who wants to start learning how to coach themselves. That's a great book.
Okay. Guys, it's called The Coaching Habit.
hmm And he's got
Cool.
another one called The Advice Monster, which is another great one because it actually tells you how to shut up. And when you ask those questions, actually listen for answers. It makes you a much better salesperson too.
The Advice Monster?
Yeah, our goal is most of the time is to tell people what we think. It's
Mm-hmm.
not to listen
Mm-hmm.
and diagnose and break down and find
Yeah.
the right next question.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've done that once. Let me tell you what I did. Like, well,
Yes.
that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. That's actually not even what I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
So we got to get rid of that
Mm,
advice monster.
that's good. Wow.
Yeah. So that I think back to your question, practically, fear is something that's two-sided. It's a mindset, as you always hear. It's something that you have to understand that is unreasonable most of the time. That's your first
Yeah.
step. To
Yeah.
understand that it's unreasonable or that it's been blown up in your mind. Like it's reasonable, but it's not near as big a deal as you think. And by asking yourself those questions, you bring yourself back down to earth,
That's good.
and then that's when we got to the elephant to one bite. It's go, okay, I'm not that afraid anymore. I understand I'm being a bit of a diva here. What's the next best step? What can I do tomorrow? Let's do
Yeah.
that. And guess
Yeah.
what we do? We start over and do it all again tomorrow.
Yeah. That's
That's
so
it, it's
good.
the same process.
Wow. I love it. Well, this has been awesome. I know we're going to be talking a lot more, so we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for doing
Yep.
this with me. I very much appreciate it, and
I love it.
I know
It's so
this is
fun to talk,
helping a
just
lot
chat
of
about stuff.
people out.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Ryan. I
All right, you're
appreciate you.
welcome. Talk to you next time.
Okay.